Okay, friends, again, we are coming back to your site. This is the SP Stories, and we are starting our podcast. Yeah, everybody knows Iran Israel war in the crisis in Middle East is lasting about 12 days. But it's not 12 days, it is lasting about the decades, and Palestine issues are on the brink of collapsing of the humanity. So today, our guest is from London, Mr. Dermot Hudson. He's a social activist, and he's also a anti-war activist also. So thank you, Hudson, to come in this podcast.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here.
Okay, we'll come to the right point of these discussions. Middle East crisis. After 12 days of war, what the Middle East has got? What's your view?
Well, I think the situation in the Middle East is very dangerous. I think it could very easily become a world war, and I think the ceasefire is fake. The crisis has been provoked by Israel's unprovoked and aggressive attack on Iran, which was something that was very unnecessary. Iran had entered into talks. They were undergoing negotiations. So Israel suddenly attacked. In my opinion, it's an attack by the Israeli Zionists, who are puppets of US imperialism. It's an attack by the Zionists on the anti-imperialist independent forces.
Okay. First, the aggression is coming from the Israel side. They will take the drone attack on the Iranian top military officials, and they all are killed. But before that kind of conflict, what are the issues between the Iran and Israel? Only the nuclear reactor, or more on that?
I think the issues are far more deeper and fundamental than that. Israel itself, of course, has nuclear weapons, and Iran has stated that its nuclear program is a civilian one. There are more profound issues involved here. The Israeli Zionist regime wants to topple the Iranian government. It wants regime change in Iran, and it is actually carrying out the wishes of the United States. They want to overthrow the present Iranian government and replace it with a puppet regime. In fact, the old, very discredited Iranian monarchy, which was overthrown by the Iranian people over 45 years ago. In fact, I'm old enough to remember that happening. They want to bring back the hated Pahlavi regime to Iran. And it's also because Iran is an ally of the Palestinian people, and it has assisted the struggling Palestinian people. So the Israeli Zionist regime want to knock Iran out.
Okay, one thing I have to add it here. The conflict in the Palestine Liberation Front and Intifada movement, in that movement, Iran is not so keenly involved on that time. I'm talking about the Yasser Arafat era. What is the reason? And that time, the Iran is closely associated with Israel. What is your view as a if you look through this historical conflict?
Yes, well, before the Iranian Revolution in 1979, Iran had actually fairly good relations with Israel. And it was after the revolution that it deteriorated.
Okay, thing is very urgent right now. What is the interest of the USA? Because IEAA, International Atomic Associations, they are calling for the negotiation stable. But through these discussions, USA is going for the harsh manner with them, with Iran especially. What the thing is spanning out? The Israel is more coordinating attack on the Iran for the ordering from the USA. What is your view in that regard?
Right. Well, the International Atomic Energy Agency is just a puppet of the United States. They do what the United States tells them to do. In my opinion, the issue of nuclear weapons is just a fake pretext. And I personally think that Iran has the right to have nuclear weapons anyway. It's the independent right of any nation to have nuclear weapons. The US and various Western countries and Israel think that only certain countries should have a monopoly on nuclear weapons, and that some countries should not be allowed to have nuclear weapons, which I think is a totally wrong view. I mean, the United States is acting as a world dictator.
Some people have been advocate for the multipolar world, and that's why the BRIC nations and Shanghai Cooperation Treaty are on the place, and Iran is much closer associated with the Shanghai Cooperation Treaty. It means they have a strategic alliance with the China and Russia. What is your view in that conflict, or how their alliances is reacting, like China and Russia, for the Iran?
Right. Well, I think it's very important to challenge the dominance of the US in the world, and so far we have not seen any actual assistance given to Iran by either Russia or China, but they have issued statements, and there are talks between the Iranian foreign minister and the Russian president. I have not seen many statements from China. Obviously, China has condemned the attack.
Thing very old where the European nations, the peoples of the European country, are on the street and they are protesting against the war, protesting for the rights of Palestine. Why the police and administrations much harsh on the protester? You also see that kind of things in London?
Well, certainly we've had mass demonstrations in London. At the weekend, I took part in one. There were about 200,000 people on the march. You know, it was incredible. However, recently the UK authorities actually banned a Palestinian solidarity group, Palestine Action. That was banned yesterday, and a demonstration took place in the central London in support of the Palestine Action organisation, and it was heavily suppressed by the police. Many people were arrested, and a few months ago, some of the leaders of the uh, Stop the War Coalition, I believe, were arrested by the police. Some journalists have been arrested. So it's becoming a very repressive atmosphere here.
Why the European Union, especially, they are not keen to resolve the issues in Middle East? What is the reason behind it? Is there only for economic reasons or any other things or political reasons? What is your view?
Well, some people have a positive opinion of the European Union. I do not. Because in reality, it is not independent of the United States, and it follows United States policies most of the time, and there are few differences between the European Union and the US. And we saw in the case of the Ukraine situation, where the EU acted in cooperation with the US to destabilize the situation in Ukraine. The European Union is in reality dependent on the US. It's not independent. It's not a force for independence.
Yeah, that's right, and that's why the European Union somehow some differences within with the US administrations, and that's why sometimes Trump has been very much irritated by this European Union context in the Ukraine conflict. Okay, let's go to the main issues, the Middle East crisis. If you see in the 12 days in war, what will be the supremacy role? Who is the more supremacy role in this war? Iran or Israel?
In my opinion, Israel is the most aggressive state. For one thing, Israel has expanded beyond its original borders, the original borders that were set in 1948. Israel expanded beyond them in 1967 and seized many parts of various Arab countries like Syria and like Egypt. They are occupying Arab land, and they've been consistently aggressive and belligerent. I mean, look at their response to the operation that was launched on the 7th of October 2023. There's been tens of thousands of Palestinian deaths. It is the most aggressive state.
Even the many people are starving right now.
That's right. They are starving. They are being bombed.
During this war, 12 days war, we can find it out that Iran are much more superior in the air defense system, and many missiles has been hit, literally hit Tel Aviv and Haifa in other parts of the Israel. It means what the Israel has been claiming, that they are heavy air defense systems with the Iron Dome, as all are failed.
Yes, it is the Israeli air defense that they boasted about has not worked.
So behind this conflict, we can see the economic reasons also, because many analysts believe that this arm race has been spiking up after this war. What is your opinion?
Yes, I mean, the Middle East is a major flashpoint because it has oil, and the US has its eyes on the entire Middle East region. It wants to seize the resources of the Middle East, and it was once written that the Middle Eastern policy of the US was neither pro or anti-Israel, but it was simply pro-oil profits. It represented the interests of the oil companies.
What is your view? Why Trump is much more hurriedly speaking up about the ceasefire between Israel and Iran? What is why he is so much hurried? Only for economic reasons or any other reasons behind it, in your opinion?
I think there again, I think it is economic reasons. I mean, he wants a ceasefire, but not for good reasons. He wants the Iranian government to come to talks and to try that. He wants to try and disarm them through talks and basically affect regime change through the back door. But of course, if the Israelis are bombing Tehran and other parts of Iran, the Iranians will never come to talks. So Trump is a crafty man. He wants to try and lure Iran into talks so it can be disarmed.
Before I further pointed out this crisis, I have to find it. I have to giving you some finding. In 1990, there's a Gulf War, US between US and Iraq. The USA has been accused the Iraq that Iraq has developed the mass destruction weapons. But after that, when the Iraq has been destroyed and US has conquered Iraq, they will find nothing. And they told in front of journalists that, okay, we have got the wrong information.
Yes, that is very, very true. The so-called weapons of mass destruction, which in Britain we were told that Iraq could hit London in 45 minutes with missiles. These were never ever found. It was a complete lie, and I'm sure that Iran itself does not have nuclear weapons, and that its nuclear program is 100% civilian.
Already has been surveillance by the IEA, and so there's no questions about the nuclear weapons. They use that kind of things for only for power generations, and International Atomic Agency also confirmed that. Okay, that's another way out to talk that kind of topics. Okay, United Nations, one of the most important character in this total conflict. What is the role of the United Nations? Because sometimes they are very silent, sometimes they are very vocal, but harmless. What is your opinion?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think the United Nations is heavily dominated by the US, and it's often controlled by the US, and it often just reflects the opinion of the US. In fact, someone once said that the UN was simply the colonial department of the US government. I do not view the UN as a particularly effective force. Again, if we look at the Gaza situation, there's been UN resolutions passed. I mean, Israel has been condemned many times at the UN, but the ill treatment and oppression of the Palestinian people continue. So, I don't think the UN is an effective vehicle for international peace and stability or achieving justice for the oppressed peoples.
That's true. Very unfortunate. We can find it out that United Nations only the speaking in front of the press. Okay. And what about the Britain's people's mind? What their mind in that conflict? How the Britain peoples have been reacting?
Well, first of all, like I said earlier, there's very strong support for the Palestinian people in Britain. And I think many British people are worried that the Israel-Iran conflict could become a third world war. I think people are worried about that. People are also worried about the economic effects, because petrol prices will increase, and this will have a knock-on effect on other prices like food and energy prices. So people are very worried. And I think British people want peace in Iran and Israel. And I think some people are certainly opposed to British involvement, because there is a strong danger of British involvement, of the British government trying to assist the Israelis for example, by sending planes.
During recent days in some European nations has faced the election, and especially I'm talking about the France. They are the national party. They are the most dangerous national party headed by the Le Pen. They are getting the huge number of supports within the France, because they think that those are immigrants peoples. They are creating the nuisance in the Europe. What about in Britain political sense? What is the outcome in this British political scenario? What is your take?
Well, I mean, also in Britain, we have the so-called Reform Party, or Reform UK under Nigel Farage, which is also a far-right party, and that is gaining a lot of support. That party is ahead in the opinion polls, and they recently won a by-election. So that party is getting a lot of support. I think the reason parties like Reform UK and like the party in France, and like the AFD in Germany, are getting support is because of disillusionment of many ordinary people with the existing political system. And many people think that these parties are something new, that they're an alternative. People do not read the small print and do not understand what these parties are really stand for.
Is it the only Islamic phobia could make them much more popular? What is your view?
I think that's part of it. I think there is Islamophobia, and it's driving support for these parties. But I think there's other issues. I mean, the UK is in a dreadful mess. We've got high prices. We've got problems with housing. All these issues are being used. And unfortunately, I think in Britain and other European countries, the left has become dominated by the middle class and has moved away from its working class roots. So a vacuum has been left in politics, and that vacuum is being filled by the far right.
So working class movement is very much weaker right now in all over the Europe. Sometimes in France, it's a different story, but in Britain, as you told, that a working class movement is much more weaker right now. Just one word I have to add here. That's a NHS, National Health Service, and that service has been going for the privatization. I think so. And for against the privatization, there is a lots more movements. Is much uh, violent movement also going on to save the NHS. What is your view by the left?
Well, the NHS is in an appalling state. In many ways, it only exists in name. For instance, it is impossible to be able to see a doctor. They don't want to see patients. They want to do everything by the telephone or by AI or WhatsApp. It's a crazy situation. And similarly, if you have an accident, you go to the hospital, you can wait 4-6 hours.
Wow, such
Yeah.
unfortunate.
Yeah, so I mean, there's opposition to the privatization of the NHS, but it needs to be built up. And the Reform UK Party that I mentioned earlier, they want to totally abolish the NHS and replace it with a so-called insurance-based system, which would be just like the US, which would be really awful.
Okay, another episode will be discuss about the UK economic scenario. But right now we are should focusing on that issues, that Middle East crisis in the UK. How many immigrants are very much driving force in the UK politics? What is your view?
Yes, well, it's true. Immigrants are very important force. We had a prime minister of Indian origin, Rishi Sunak. The current leader of the Conservative Party is from originally from an African country. So immigrants are playing a very important role in British politics.
Okay, I have to signing off right now because already 27 minutes has been passed. So I think our discussion will be going on in next episode. But till now, Middle East somehow has been peaceful right now. No other conflicting report has been coming from the Israel side or Iran side. We all hope for the best, and we all hope for the global stability. What is your view in last word?
Well, I totally share your hope. I hope that the ceasefire can hold, but I have doubts whether it will. I think it is very important that there's no further conflict because, as I said earlier, conflict in this region, or indeed in other parts of the world, but certainly in the Middle East, could easily boil over into a third world war, and that would be a catastrophe.
It's true.
So I think the main thing to do is to build a strong movement for peace in the Middle East and to expose Israel's aggression. I mean, I worry what the ceasefire will hold because the Israelis are so belligerent and aggressive.
Okay, take care, comrade. Always been good
Thank you.
health. Next episode will coming for the only for the UK politics and the outcome of the nationalist forces. Take care. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. Take care. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.